Hey, how you doing out there, all my burners, pothead stoners? This is WeedMan 420 with the WeedMan 420 Chronicles. How you doing, Mrs. WeedMan?
I am well.
We also have T, our technician, in the house for this episode. T, how you been?
What up, what up?
T's back in style. How you doing? We have a real exciting episode for you today. I was introduced to this gentleman by a mutual friend of ours, and his name is Jason Spyres. Jason, how you doing?
Doing well.
Good. And Jason is going to do this awesome podcast for us today. Jason does he was arrested in 2001 when he was 19 years old for the sale of cannabis in Illinois, and he was sentenced for 30 years in prison. And as you know, we've been talking a lot about nonviolent cannabis crime acts in our podcast lately, and we're super excited to have Jason come on our show to tell his story today and everything he's been through, his pre-jail days, his incarceration, his life now, and then we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna do a little Q&A and ask Jason some real cool questions, and we're super excited to have Jason on the show, and we're looking forward to this, and we hope all you guys really dig into this and really understand what's going on out there in this world and with cannabis, and as we're trying to fight for legalization of this, and that's what Jason's doing also right now, and his story is awesome. Jason, how you doing? Everything good? Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man.
Take it away. We're super excited to hear your story.
All right. So basically, to just give you a little bit of preface, you said how I got arrested at 19. Yeah, there's extenuating details. Everybody could go into some extenuating details, but the bottom line is I didn't have any guns. I didn't have any violence. I didn't do anything that actually created a substantial victim outside of saying society was my victim. And what happened was when I was young, my parents, they both loved me. They wanted to do the best they could. But unfortunately, sometimes parents ain't in the right state of mind to be able to make the best decisions. And they had they were drug addicts. They had drug addictions. And so I wasn't raised in a society or in an environment where smoking pot was necessarily a bad thing, or, using drugs was necessarily a moral evil. And I was poor. I lived on welfare. I was what you'd call lower class. I lived in a trailer that was all beat up. I remember one time we had a bad storm and it ripped a hole in the roof of the trailer right over my room. And to fix that, we put a tarp over it. That's the lifestyle that I was accustomed to. So I remember when I was turning 17, I had this idea to throw a party. I was going to invite some people over, and, being 17, I made stupid decisions, and, I thought it'd be cool to have, some pot for everybody, kind of like a party favor. A buddy of mine said that he could get a half ounce for $35. I ended up going on a wild goose chase to get it. But an important part of this story is that the half ounce of pot was in a city about 15 miles away from where I was at. I didn't trust the car that I was driving too well. And so my mother said that I could use her car to go get it. And I told her why I was using her car. So when I told her that I was going to go get a half ounce of pot, as I'm walking out, she's like, hold on. And gave me $10. Said, get me some too. I'm out. So I get in the car and I go on this goose chase, and I pay $35 for less than a half ounce of low-grade Mexican marijuana with a lot of seeds. When I say Mexican, I'm just describing it cannabis that came from Mexico. And so the next day I get home, I give mom a little bit for $10. And the next day at school I go and I'm telling people that I got the pot and come, we're going to have a party tonight, this and that. Well, I walked up and there was a girl there that I was kind of attracted to, trying to hit on and stuff. And a guy was there and I said, hey, you guys want to, you want to roll a joint? And the ironic part of this is I didn't even smoke pot at this time. I've never really been a pothead in my life, but I've smoked it, but I've never been a pothead. But it was kind of like part of the scene. It was all my friends smoked pot. I rode a skateboard, things like that. And so I asked them, hey, you guys want to smoke a bowl? And they're like, yeah. And so when they rolled in the bowl, the guy asked me if I'd sell him some pot. And I said, no, man, it's for the party. I'm not trying to sell it. He's like, all right, whatever. So then when they get done, he goes away. And the girl says, "Hey, Jason." I'm like, "Yeah, will you sell me a little bit of that?" And like somehow she just had magical powers that he didn't have on me, and I said, "Sure." And I just sold her $5 worth or something like that. And so then throughout the day, this conversation happened multiple times. And, I ended up selling someone $10 worth and $15 worth. And when it all added up, at the end of the day, I counted it and I had $35 and I had weed left over. Or no, I had $30 and I had weed left over.
That's pretty nice.
Bucks for this. But then I forgot my mom had given me $10 before I left to go get it. So I realized that I actually made $5 and had pot left over with me literally telling people throughout the day, "No, I'm not trying to sell it. No, I don't want to sell this. No, I do not want to sell this." And I still, ended up making $5. Now, I'm not justifying it. Obviously, I agreed to still sell the cannabis to people. I knew it was illegal and doing it. I'm a kid. But my point is it turned on this light bulb of I enjoyed the social interactions. I enjoyed the concept of being the guy that had it. I enjoyed, meeting the people, and I literally could make money on it and feel like I'm just helping out my friends. So I fell into that big trap that everybody says that they're in, where I was literally just helping out my friends. But so I ended up getting a bigger quantity. I got like an ounce or two. And then it just took off from there. And I was the guy hooking up the local high school, and everybody around town. And I wasn't making big money at this point. I was making like gas money and concert tickets, and like I couldn't have went and gotten my own place and afforded to pay all my bills on it. So I'm still living at mom's. And then what happened is when I turned 18, I decided that I wanted to move out to Illinois because that's where my dad was at. And I used to go back to Illinois every summer and Christmas. So I would do the school year with my mother, and then I'd fly back to Illinois and see my dad over summer and Christmas. Well, one year during Christmas, I found out the price of cannabis back there because some of my friends smoked pot. And cannabis in Illinois was like twice the price of what cannabis was in California. So when I turned 18, I moved out to Illinois because I planned on getting to know my dad better. I wanted to get a job on the railroad. And yeah, I brought some pot with me with no intention of becoming like a big time trafficker. But when I got back there, or here, because we're in Illinois now, like I just told some friends that I had it, and the little bit that I had was gone real quick. And so what went through my head is, well, okay, well, I got a little bit of money. I'll go and I'll get 2 pounds. I'll get 2 pounds of cannabis. I think it was, if I accidentally stayed in a mountain, it was 3 pounds. It was 20 years ago. I don't remember exact numbers, but in case people ever want to spot check me on another story and I said 3 pounds, it was not a large amount of money to buy. It was like $1,000 at the time. So
you had some weed on you.
Yeah, like I get people who want to criticize me for little mistakes that I'm not even trying to lie about anything. I'm just trying to tell stories. I don't remember exact numbers on everything. But anyway, so I remember I went back to California and I get the 2 pounds or the 3 pounds, whatever it was. And I was worried on the way back. I'm like, man, this was like June. I'm like, am I going to be able to get rid of all of this by the end of the summer? Like, I was worried about it. And I told some of my friends what I was doing, and I literally got to Illinois. I pulled in the driveway. One of my friends was there, and it was like already all spoken for. He already had everybody lined up that wanted to get like quarter pounds and stuff like that. And it was like literally gone in a day and a half. And I was worried, like, would I be able to get rid of all this by the end of the summer? So, next thing I know, like it just came flying in. Like as fast as I could get the weed here, it was gone. Like
especially being in Decatur, Illinois, right, where you probably couldn't get weed.
Yeah,
like that.
If I could have went to the bank and had a legal market and gotten an equity loan, I could have made so much money. My problem was I couldn't buy enough to not run out. There was points where I was buying. There was times where I was getting 50 pounds of Mexican pot and bringing it back to Illinois, and like it wouldn't last the week. It wouldn't. Wow. It would not get me to Friday. Like So that's how quick it was going. And yeah, I was making good money. Like I don't make no qualms about it. I was making real good money. But then what happened was, I'm gonna say in early May, I got woke up to a gun being pointed in my face, and there was 6 guys, and they were ransacking my house, and they split my head open, and they ended up robbing me for 83.5 pounds of cannabis.
Whoa.
Wow.
So I had video cameras in my house. Selling drugs out the house. No one knew where I lived. It's a long story on how they found out. I had video cameras because I'd lose my keys and things like that. And I'd go back and look on the tape to see where I threw my keys at. But I remember I was laying on the ground and they had a gun to my head and they told me they were going to kill me. And about 5 seconds later, I hear a guy going, "What's that?" And he's pointing up to the video camera in the corner of the room. And they said, "Oh, crap." And next thing I know, they were gone.
Whoa.
You know?
Yeah.
And
You're probably alive because of that camera.
Yeah, you're alive because of that camera. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Did they take the cannabis with them, or did they leave that?
Oh, they took it all. They took 83.5 pounds.
Ugh.
Wow.
Yeah. So
What does 83.5 pounds look like? Like, is that like the whole back seat of a car?
oh no, not even close. I had a little Plymouth Champ, if you know what that is, a little teeny tiny. Think of like a Geo Metro. Right?
Okay.
I could put 50 pounds in the back of literally the back hatch of a Geo Metro with no problems.
Whoa.
When I got so I'll explain it more in a minute. Is so these guys left, and they ended up getting caught the next day with the 83.5 pounds of pot that they robbed me with. They got caught with 12 pounds. So I think that's how the police discovered me, because I'm pretty sure they had no loyalty to me. So when they said, "Where'd you get this?" I'm pretty sure somebody told them they robbed it from me. So come June, I get arrested for a UPS box that comes to my house with 37 pounds in it. Now, to give you a description of how big that is, the box itself was 18 by 18 by 12 inches,
Okay.
and it was too big. It was too big of a box for the 37 pounds.
Wow.
So the back brick used to be real small. So when I got arrested, I ended up getting a 30-year sentence, and I remember going to prison, and I remember thinking in my head, this sentence won't happen. This ain't gonna happen. There's no way. Society is not gonna let me serve, like 15 years for cannabis, or even a good behavior to be 15 years. They won't do that. For pot, no way. So I had this delusion that I would do all that time. I was wrong, because I did all that time. And I swore, I'm going to win on appeal, or the governor will commute my sentence, or something will happen. And I'm not saying because I was innocent, because I wasn't. I was guilty. I'm saying because society at large, you're going to take 15 years because they've sold a plant. You know what I mean? Like, I just refused to accept that. And I found out, I remember after I already served 12 years, I was sitting on a wall one day and I realized I'm really going to do all this time.
Ugh.
At that point, the 3 more years, that didn't scare me. I'd already done 12 years. It's kind of like if you're doing a 15-mile run, you've already ran 12 miles. The last 3 miles of it probably doesn't scare you. You might not want to do it. You might be ready to sit down, but it doesn't scare you.
Right.
So what did scare me is the fact that society did. They let my sentence stand. I mean, we can be as progressive as we want and talk about how cannabis laws are changing and things are getting better, but like they let my sentence stand. And there's people right now still sitting in prison with sentences like that. People hear my story and they think that my story is something this strange. It's not. There's not hundreds of thousands like me. There's hundreds. I guarantee it. There's hundreds. So, but when I was in prison, I also had this other realization, because I said, I was telling you this story before we talked, so I'll go through it real quick. I was in prison and I had my daily routine. I would go to the chow hall every day. And you get friends when you're in prison. You know, you get some people you're cool with. And every time we'd go to the chow hall, we would stand underneath this tree because it provided shade waiting to go in. Well, one day I had a dental call pass or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I didn't go. And that tree fell. And I'm not saying like that tree fell like, no, everybody told me it just fell. Crack. Boom.
Oh shit.
And it dawned on me that, like, had I went to chow, that tree and that tree landed on me. What I am saying is it dawned on me that that was possible, that could have happened. And I realized that that means I would be dead. And then I asked myself, okay, if I died, what would I have to show for myself? And the only thing I could think of is, and your viewers can't see that I usually do it on video, is that I was good, and I'm making air quotes, at selling cannabis. And the reason I use good is because I got caught doing it and got sent to prison. So I obviously wasn't that good. But my claim to fame was that I was good at moving a plant from this zip code to that zip code. And I was like, I just don't think that's like what I want to be remembered for. Like, I don't want that to be my life contribution to the universe. And so I was like, what can I do to do something better? You know? And the only thing that came to my head is education. I said, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but the more I understand and the more I learn, the more I'll be better equipped to pull it off when I do figure out what it is that I want to do. So I started going to the library and looking for textbooks. I wrote colleges asking for old textbooks they had, and I got my hands on a molecular chemistry book, and I spent, you know, every day 6 hours a day for 6 months going through it page by page, every single problem, you know, every single day. And after that, my mom actually, I don't remember what year it was, but for math, it started out with, she got online and printed out some transcripts of Khan Academy videos and sent me that. And that kind of motivated me because I read that and he talked in plain English. So then I got a regular math book and started studying that. And then I got a calculus book and started studying that. Then I got a physics book. I started studying that. So everyone was asking me when I'm doing all this studying, like, what was my plan? Why was I doing all this studying? I said, well, when I get out, I want to go to college. And I know I'm going to have to work, right? And I figure if I study the material now, it'll make the classes easier so that I can handle a full-time job while going to school when I get out.
Yeah.
And I remember a guard came up to me, and I was working on a physics book, and I was looking at water going through a pipe and the kind of pressure it'll create pushing water up through a pipe. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure it out because I got to do calculus without a calculator and everything like that. I'm trying to figure it out on paper. And the guard came up to me and said, dude, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like, he's like, why? And I said, I'm trying to go to college when I get out. I said, like, you know, he's like, where are you trying to go? I said, I don't know, Harvard, Stanford, University of Illinois. He kind of laughed at me, like, not laughed like, screw you, you can't do it, you piece of crap, but laughed like, yeah, that's not happening. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking in my head, like, why is he laughing at that? Like, what's so funny? Like, why couldn't I go to college or do? And then I had this other thought of like, I'm arrogant enough that you can laugh at me for my goals, and I'm going to do it anyways. If anything, you laughing at me is going to motivate me to push harder when it does get tough. But I looked around the prison day room, and I seen some other guys, and I started thinking about, I wonder how many times they had a GED book out or something, and they were just trying to better themselves, and they had a similar interaction. And not everybody's as arrogant as enough to me to take my, not disdain, but like the way I reacted to that conversation to push myself further. Other people might buy into what he was saying.
Right.
And that scared me. And so I started looking into Illinois policy and how we run our prisons, and I started seeing how our policies are messed up and are basically those conversations on paper through our policy. So I disagreed with a lot of the educational policies. There was times where you couldn't get in a GED classroom because of some weird. Anyways, long story short, I decided that these policies needed to be changed, and I started writing every single state representative, every single state senator, and I wrote the governor's office multiple times arguing for policy changes. And any time that the policy change would affect my sentence, in other words, would lower my sentence, I made a point of saying in the letter, make it start from this day forward. Therefore, it will not is going forward, because I don't want to lose my personal credibility by making it seem like I'm just arguing for myself, because I wasn't.
Right.
And so I only got 1 or 2 responses.
At least you got something.
Yeah, I got Frericks, who's actually our state treasurer now.
There you go.
Frericks is senator in Champaign. He's now our state treasurer. Or wait, yeah, state treasurer.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. He actually wrote me back twice, and I think it was actually him. I don't think it was a secretary, because
That's cool.
the things he said in the letter I've seen him say like live on camera before. So
Nice.
some of the verbiage. So anyway, so after I didn't get many responses, I then realized that if this is going to happen, I got to make the people want it to happen, not the legislator. So I started writing every single newspaper in the state. My mom literally went online and got the address to every single newspaper in the state, and I wrote endlessly in newspapers and op-eds, learning how to, in 300 words, explain a problem, argue for a potential solution, and explain how to contact their representatives to get it to happen. And I ended up getting the headline of the Chicago Sun-Times op-ed twice. I got published in Chicago Tribune. I got published in all kinds of papers. I've been published over 100 times.
That's awesome.
Nice.
All this comes down to, I'm setting up bigger stuff so we can get to it, of when I get out, right? When I get out, I went through with my plan and said, you know what? I am going to try and go to Harvard or Stanford or, the University of Illinois. I'm going to try and go to a big school. And I wasn't going to do it, just because I want to go to a big school, because you can get a great education, especially for engineering, at a local university, like, NIU and SIU here. They put out good engineering degrees, but I realized it was this wow factor, this like, I wanted to make that police officer or that correctional officer who kind of thought my goal was funny when I said, I don't know, Harvard or Stanford. I wanted to make it realize that is possible, because I didn't want him to have that conversation with other people when they were studying for their GED.
Mm-hmm.
Little negative motivation goes a long way sometimes.
Yeah. And so like I did, I got out and I got a job. I was washing dishes at Kinney's West Side Pub in Peoria, Illinois. And when I was washing dishes, I got out and I was in a work release center for the last 18 months of my sentence. That's where they help you transition back into society. They want you to get a job, and learn working skills. So I ended up getting a job as a dishwasher. And when I get to the work release center, I tell my counselor, hey, I got 2 goals. And this is when I first got there before I got my job. He's like, okay, let's hear these 2 goals. I said, my first goal, my number 1 objective is to do whatever it takes to make you happy. He's like, I like your first goal. Your first goal. You're on something here. You're smart. I was like, okay. And my second goal is I want to be an engineer. And he was like, okay. like he didn't really understand how he fit into that goal.
Yeah.
So that means I would like to be able to go to college. And he's like, oh, this is a work release center, not a college center. And I said, well, it says in your book that I can do it. It says in your handbook. And he's like, tell you what, get a full-time job. Go bring home 2 or 3 checks, full-time work. And then we can talk about your college courses.
Can I ask you a question? Why did he say go get 2 or 3 checks? He didn't believe that you were going to stick with working at least, and you were going to be just.
I think he wanted to see that I could get a job and keep a job, and see what it's like to work, and then make a decision on if I could still handle working and school on top of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Makes
really
sense.
don't think he was being negative. I think he was just not being optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So I go get the dishwasher job, because I wanted any job I could possibly get just so I could bring home this full-time check. And I told my boss, what the counselor told me. He said, dude, I totally support you going to school. I'm all for it. He said, figure out what's going on with your counselor and we'll try to work that out. His name's Sean Kinney. If you Google me, you'll find a video online called The Pardon. Sean Kinney's in it. Shout out to him and Kinney's West Side because he made a lot of my life possible. But
Cool.
So anyways, so I go back to my counselor after about 6 weeks and I said, you said get a full-time job. I'm working 78 hours. I've been there 6 weeks now. I also just got promoted to be the manager. So now I'm going to school. He's like, you're working 70 hours a week. You can't handle school. You really can't handle school. I said, yeah. And I told you when you told me what I had to do, I'd do it, and I've done it. And I told you my first rule was do whatever it takes to make you happy. So now I'm just asking you to trust me that I will still listen to that first rule. I will do what it takes. He said, all right, you can go sign up for one class. And I'm like, whoa, hold on, that's not fair. He's like, what do you mean that's not fair? I said, I'm working. I said, what if I go out there and there's a 5-credit class, but I can't take that one because it's at a bad time. But there's 2 2-credit classes. I can't take 2 2-credit classes, but I could take 1 5-credit class. And he's like, just don't do anything stupid. Go out to the college, sign up for your class. I go out to the college. First thing I do, full-time engineering classes with labs, with everything. And I knew I could do it because I'd already talked to my boss beforehand. And I said, remember how you said you'd support me going to school? And he said, yeah, I support you going to school. I said, but it's going to require me to, shift around my hours. He's like, how bad? I said, I got a deal for you. He's like, what's your deal? I said, if you let college come first, you will always come second. He's like, second? You got to work on your negotiation skills. And he's like, you're not understanding what I'm saying, Sean. If you let college come first, you will come second, and I will come third. And what I mean by that is I won't be going on dates. I won't be going home on the weekend. I won't be doing any of the perks that the Work Release Center lets me do. If it's not school, it will be your business. That's the deal I'm making for you. And he said, I support it. Let's do it. So I signed up in full-time engineering courses, and then for the next 18 months, 17 months, I was working 70 hours a week, managing 2 different locations, became the operations manager over the gaming division of WazKen Inc., which is Kenny's West Side Pub's corporate thing. And I was going to school full-time, and I ended up pulling 4.0.
You were banging
That's
it.
awesome. No excuses. That's awesome.
And I wanted to get into the honor society because I knew I had big plans to try and transfer to a big school when I got done. Right. And so Phi Theta Kappa sent me an invite. And so I went to join the honor society for the community college. And then they denied me.
Jeez.
They sent me an invite, and then they denied me. So I go down there, and I'm like, whoa, what's up? Why am I getting denied? And they said because I was technically still incarcerated because I was in a work release center, that according to their bylaws, they just couldn't let me in. And I was like, that's so unfair. Like, so basically you're saying because I sold cannabis, that if I would have never sold cannabis, I'd be in it right now. So what you're telling me is because I sold cannabis 16, 17 years ago at this point, I'm not worthy of having my good grades acknowledged and honored? Like, what does that have to do with the A's that I earned? And the lady was like, look, Jason, it's not us. We're on your side. It's the national charter. And so one thing I learned when I was in prison, I learned how to write a letter. My computer, and I wrote an email, an electronic letter, and I write the national charter, and I just basically said, you guys said, look, I respect you guys enough that I want to be a part of your organization, and I'm just asking that you respect the effort that I'm putting into my grades the same way as if I didn't sell cannabis 17 years ago. Because yes, I did something that was wrong, but it was totally unrelated to everything that I'm doing today. The A's that I'm getting on my tests, I'm helping my co-students. I got great professor recommendations. I'm just asking you to honor my good conduct today and not hold my bad conduct that I've turned my back on against me anymore. And they said, you know what? You're right. I got an email a couple days later, and they said they held a meeting and changed their bylaws and said, you are absolutely right. You should be in Phi Theta Kappa. And now anybody in that situation can join Phi Theta Kappa, and I'm very proud of it.
Yay.
Hell
But
yeah.
I was the first ever incarcerated student to be admitted into Phi Theta Kappa. I was
Nice.
Good for you.
Is there anybody else that's been inducted into that since you?
Yeah, multiple people. A guy
Sweet.
that walked up. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he wants his story out there, but I know for a fact there's other people.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
They changed their bylaws to make it so that people in my position could get in. So after I do that, I'm getting ready to get out of prison, and I look into transferring. I apply to the University of Illinois. I apply to Harvard. I apply to Stanford. I apply to Columbia. I apply to Northwestern. I apply to all these schools, and let me tell you what. I have a very stable emotional balance for denials because I got one denial after another. Denial. But, when you're shooting for a star, you can't be mad when you miss. You know what I mean? And then the University of Illinois got a hold of me, and they said, we're going to let you in, but it comes with a condition. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, the condition is you got to be on academic probation. I'm like, why do I got to be on academic probation? They said, oh, but because of your felony.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Why am I on academic probation? Like that's like I cheated on a test or something. And he's like, yeah, but we have a thing where our discipline and our academics all in the same office, so it's all the same thing. And I'm just like, so you're telling me because I sold pot 17 years ago that I have to go onto your campus as if I cheated on a test? He's like, basically. And I'm just like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, and
No way.
Can you explain the procedure to me? He's like, yeah, when you apply to the university, there's one of three things that we can do. We can deny you due to your conviction. We can admit you on academic probation, or we can just admit you outright. I'm like, well, can you give me an example of someone you would admit outright? He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, let's say you had a DUI, right? But it's been 3 years ago. You know, I mean, you messed up, but you did your little probation, whatever. You get out, and you're doing the right thing now. We see no reason to hold that against you anymore because you've already learned your lesson and you're moving forward in life. And I'm like, "Have you seen my file?" And he's like, no, why? And I know you got a cannabis conviction. I'm like, it was from 17 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just told me if I had a DUI 3 years ago that you would admit me outright. And he was just like,
Yeah, exactly.
no, that's our policy. Like, I could tell he all of a sudden stopped and was like, sounded like he wanted to be on my side, but he was just the poor guy who had to be on the phone and defend a stupid policy.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So then I get a response from Stanford saying that I'd been waitlisted. They said they were incredibly moved. They thought I had all this great potential, but I'd been waitlisted. I accepted that waitlist spot so quick you couldn't imagine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Totally.
Hell yeah.
I sent my admissions officer a thank you letter. I said, because I had a transcript issue the week before, and she got a hold of me asking for my old transcripts. And I sent her an email, and I said, I want to thank you for getting a hold of me about those transcripts because I know you had a stack of files this big. Her name was Abby Jones. I'll put her name out there to this day. I thank this lady. I said, I know you have a stack of applications on your desk. So any given thing that you could use just to throw the application to the side, not have to worry about it, you could have jumped on. But you've seen that there was a transcript issue, that one of my transcripts didn't get sent correctly. You got a hold of me so I could fix the issue, and now I'm waitlisted. And I know I would not have made it this far if it was not for your help. So I send the email. And I get an automatic email back saying that she's out of the office for the next 5 days or whatever on behalf of Stanford's on Stanford's behalf. And so when I was taking my spot on the wait list, I remembered that Stanford had events in Chicago at the JW Marriott on the same days that she said she'd be out of the office on behalf of Stanford. And she was the Illinois admissions officer. So the next day, I got a guy to cover me at work. I took off and I went to the event at the JW Marriott. I walk in and I ran into her in the lobby of the hotel.
Wow.
Nice.
I got to meet her in person. We ended up having like a 30-minute conversation. And next thing I know, 3 weeks later, I get off the wait list and I'm admitted to Stanford
That's
University. And
Awesome.
so, yeah, it was a moment. I was crying. I threw the video up on Facebook.
You're a hustler, man.
Yeah.
You just don't take no.
It was, but now
Yeah.
Stanford University, I'm currently studying computer science with an emphasis in artificial intelligence. And to go 360, and I'll let you ask any questions if you got them. What I'm doing right now is I'm reflecting on how I never thought society would let my sentence stand. I never thought that they would let a 30-year sentence stand. But then when I got out after serving that time, it got worse because I realized that I got over $200,000 in fines that they gave me for for that cannabis. So they took 15 years of my life and gave me over $200,000 in fines. I got debt collection letters for it, and they turned it in debt collections. And with the debt collections fee, it's now $268,000.
Oh, all
Holy
the interest fees and shit
Yeah.
like that.
So here's what I tell people. You think we're a progressive society, and you think that we're moving past this era of cannabis is this horrible thing and we should wreck people's lives with it. You think that we're starting to legalize it and things are getting better. But in the meantime, there's people serving over a decade of their life, and there's people with 6-figure fines that were nonviolent cannabis offenders, and I'm not the only one. I
Wow.
can name other ones. People should not have fines like that for nonviolent cannabis. Think about that. That means we're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars for people that we're like, oh, but it's cool if you do it now because it's legal here in Illinois. But our
Mhm.
Illinois courts are still wanting to collect fines from you.
Hmm.
And so what I do now that I'm at Stanford is I'm studying how policy is getting affected and how that policy can have ripples into the future. And so I'm majoring in artificial intelligence. And right now, we have a thing where we're moving to be an artificially intelligent society faster than we realize it. But
Mhm.
artificial intelligence is only as smart as we think that it is. It's not that smart. And here's the problem. I don't want to get too wonky, but when Google Translate was first developing itself, it would try to translate one language to another language. And in certain languages, they have gender neutral pronouns. Like if I say, hey, look at them over there, you don't know if I'm talking about men or women. But in other languages, they do that for individuals like he and she. They just have a gender neutral one that could be either or. When they were translating languages, they would start to realize that there's a biasness built into our artificial intelligence that anytime it was like so-and-so is an engineer, it would translate he. And so-and-so is a teacher, it would translate she. I've met many female engineers. I met many male teachers. But we can see that as we're programming these computers, we reveal our subtle biasness that we don't usually see in ourselves by designing these programs. Because these programs ain't humans. They don't have filters. They don't have a way to throw out the garbage. They just present what is actually there to you. And so what I'm doing now is I want to remove any cannabis conviction that was ever given from any data set that goes into an AI, an artificial intelligence predictive model. Because we're currently using them to decide cash bail systems and non-cash bail systems in courts. They have programs that use algorithms to decide if you're a menace to society and if you should be granted bail. Look up Compass, COMPAS. You learn all about it. And they're finding that it's about as accurate as judges ever were. On if someone's going to commit a crime and they get out or not. But here's what scares me. When they look at this data, right, there's biasness inside of it, and they're incorporating prior convictions for cannabis into the algorithms to decide if you're a risk to society or not. Now, somebody can argue, yes, cannabis might be legal now, But if you committed a crime then by selling cannabis, it was still a crime, so it should still be a factor weighed into our decision. Someone could say that's a valid thing. But I say as soon as you say that's a valid thing, I get to use your same logic. And if I get to use your same logic, then what you're telling me is if someone had an interracial marriage in the 60s when it was illegal, you can use the fact that they had an interracial marriage to predict them to be a criminal in the future.
Wow.
Huh.
It was illegal at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And my whole premise is I agree that someone did something illegal at the time it was illegal. But as a society, when we're making our predictions, things are going to get cemented into our predictions. It's going to embolden our society to keep on repeating the same mistake. And so right now, I'm getting ready to start up a website. I'm going to call it makecannabisnotmatter.com. I'll probably get the .org too, just in case. And I want to start up, I don't know if I'm going to do it as a nonprofit, but I'm at least going to start up an awareness website to make people not use past cannabis convictions as predictor quantifiers inside of their algorithms for future decisions.
There you go.
That's great.
Love it.
Sorry I went off the rails. It went a little long.
That's all right.
No,
That's
no
great.
way, man. This is what we wanted to hear from you and what you're doing and stuff like that. I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, your story is impactful, and I think, you know, a lot of people need to hear it.
Here's the thing, though. Like, when I tell people I got 30 years of cannabis, like, that shocks them. They don't realize it. And I'm trying to warn people that if we're not careful, if we don't start removing these kind of things from our data sets, there's not going to be a person that gets shocked. Because when a computer translates he is an engineer and it's a she, it doesn't know it's a she. The computer doesn't know that it's being biased. It's a computer. It's a dumb machine. People can hear my sentence and be like, what? $268,000 in fines? Are you out of your mind? I don't know what they're smoking, but can I have 2 ounces of it, please? But a computer is just going to be like, yep, because it has no emotion. It has no fact. It doesn't care.
Right.
So if we don't fix this problem, we're going to see draconian measures kick in for things that make no sense. We're going to get to the point where you'll be denied a home loan for a cannabis conviction 15 years ago. Guaranteed. It will happen if we do not remove cannabis convictions from our data sets that we train these models on. Or if we don't remove our data sets, we at least got to remove it from using it as a basis for our predictions.
Are you working with anybody on that, or is that just you?
No, it's an idea that I had about a month ago, and I'm currently looking on how I want to do it as a nonprofit. Do you know who Peter Thiel is?
No, I don't.
Okay, Peter Thiel he was the first outside investor in Facebook. He started up PayPal with Elon Musk. He went to Stanford, and I'm a writer on the Stanford Review, and it's a newspaper he started up when he was at Stanford. And so I learned about Peter Thiel, and the more I've studied and how this guy looks and seeing things, he's made me realize that you can't just do something because it's trendy. You can't just go and get, big shots around you. You got to do something because it's the right way to do it. And then you got to be careful because time is your most limited resource. And so right now it's in its infancy, but I'm hoping that I can get it going and partner with the right people. And I'm not trying to make money off this deal. I want to do it as a nonprofit. That's why I said I don't even know I'm going to file. It might just be a website where I can get people to go to it and learn more about what I'm talking about. Because I just don't want the next Jason Spyres to sit in a prison cell for 15 years over something that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And this ties in. Let me circle back one last time. I realized what's the most important thing. When I had that discussion with that corrections officer and he kind of laughed at my goals of going to Stanford or Harvard. By the way, I am at Stanford, so I kind of got that. And see, we don't got to talk about the other 14 I got denied from, because what matters is the one I got into. You can think it's funny as much as you want 14 times. If it works the 15th time, I'm still right.
Absolutely.
I want people to apply that same kind of logic to their goals. But what's important to me is when that officer was having that discussion, I realized it wasn't that he didn't believe that I could do it or believe that anyone else in the prison could do it. I think it was rooted in the fact that he didn't believe that he could do it. Because
Totally.
if he couldn't do it and he was the correctional officer and I was the inmate, then I definitely couldn't do it. And see, I don't believe in this whole the cop said I couldn't do it, so he's a bad guy. I want him to believe that he can do it just as much as I want the inmate to believe that he can do it. Because I want us all to rise. A rising tide rises all ships. And I don't want one section of society to get raised by negating by negating another section of society.
Yep.
So what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it better for everybody. COs, inmates, society at large, everybody. So that's my goals right now.
Are you mentoring or coaching anybody from back in your prison days that got out now and helping them through, or have you talked to anybody from then that like saw you what you've done? Has anybody reached out to you from back then?
Yeah. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yeah, we got you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So, yes, I have some people from my past who I keep in contact with. I'm mentoring. Like I said, I'm real good about not putting people's names out there if they haven't given me express permission. But there are people that I am talking with on a weekly basis, and they're trying to make the decisions that are best for them. And I love to hear how their growth is coming. You know, it's a struggle at times. My best friend that I had in prison, he was the closest thing to me, committed suicide about 2 years
Sorry.
ago after I got out. And so I struggle at times with realizing that other people face issues that I don't. And when people get out of prison, a lot of times we don't realize that they have a lot of underlying mental health issues. But I'm seeing a lot of success stories that really inspire me of people that I was locked up with too. So I try
That's
to
good.
take the good with the bad.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Mhm.
You know, that seeing the success that you had and are having, these guys probably see that, and either they're saying the same thing in their head, going, I can't do that. Some of them might say, I can do that, but I need help. And
let
watching
me
your story and learning from you, it's a great mentorship program that you could be doing also to help out inmates that admire what you've done and are
Yeah,
doing still.
let me throw this out there because I don't know if I'll have the website fully functional by the time people are hearing this podcast. So if makecannabisnotmatter.com or .org is not right, you can find me on Facebook at 30 Years for Cannabis. And feel free to send me a message if there's anything I can do to help you out, anything I can do to help you understand the barriers you might face. Don't don't be afraid to send me a message. I respond to almost everybody. And it is possible. If you're sitting there, if you're listening to this and you're thinking you couldn't do the same thing I did, you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you that as loudly as I can, you're wrong. I am not special. The only reason I am special is because nobody knows that there's other people just like me. The same way that people hear, you got 30 years in prison? Oh my gosh, that's outrageous. I can't believe they did that to you. It happens to other people all the time. When people say, "Oh, you got into Stanford? That's amazing. That's a one in a million shot." No, there's plenty of other people at Stanford very similar to me. Stanford takes pride in the fact that they give people second chances and let them move past their past. So does Cornell University. So anything you think you can do, don't buy into the hype that you can't do it. Buy into the faith that you know you can.
That's great. And even following even in the small steps, it doesn't have to be one giant step saying I can't get into Stanford, but like you did, got a job, started a local junior college, worked your way up, and then applied to Stanford. Start off small. Don't think that just because Jason is in Stanford right now that he didn't work his way to get to Stanford. It took some time, it took some work, and he went and did it. His drive, discipline, and determination, I would say, and that got you there. But start small. Don't always, if anybody's listening out there that's thinking that they can't do something, you're wrong, because the gentleman that we're talking to right now has done it himself. But he started small and worked his way up.
I started by going over to a prison library and getting a textbook and not knowing if I'd be able to read it, and just kept going.
Let me ask you a question. Before that tree almost hit you, or when you were in the dentist, you had the premonition that you could have been dead. What was those 12 years like before that? I mean, what was it like?
That was when I was about three years in.
Oh, so 3 years in. Okay.
I had that premonition at the beginning. Before that, actually, when I got sent to prison, I didn't even circle back to this. My story gets so complicated at times. I ended up in prison with the same people that robbed me.
Holy
No way.
shit.
Yeah,
No
when I got my head split open and got the 83 pounds
Yeah.
stolen from me, I ended up in prison with I told you they got caught the next day or something.
Right.
So I ended up in prison with them. And there was one of them that I actually got cool with. And, like, he came up to me one day and was like, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yeah, I know who you are." He kind of wanted to start something with me. And I said, "Look, man, stop right there. I don't want no problems. I don't have no problems with you unless you want to have problems. I'm not trying to cause you any grief." And he, like, was hesitant at first, but then he backed off. And so then we ended up working in a dietary together on third shift. And we actually get along. And how do you, like not want to get at me because I was a part of that when you're out there? I said, "Because you didn't rob me. You didn't rob Jason Spyres. You robbed a drug dealer. It was nothing personal. It wasn't against me. And I'm not that person anymore. I've
There you
moved
go.
past it." And you know what I found out? He respected that. And when we got cool, I asked him about the robbery and how he found my house and all that stuff. And I found out that they didn't know where my house was. They just knew what my car looked like. And they identified my car in a driveway. And I shared a driveway with my neighbor. And when they came up to my door with 6 guns, 6 people with guns, getting ready to kick it in, they walked up to my neighbor's back door.
Wow.
And they were seconds away from kicking in his door. They had no idea what I looked like. They had no idea how tall I was. All they knew is I was a white male that responded to Jason.
Wow.
And if they would, and at the last second, they looked over and they seen a Slipknot logo on my door, and there's a Slipknot thing in my car, and so they realized it was probably the wrong house.
Whoa.
But that was life shattering to me. That was before the tree happened, and that's what made me decide that I would never sell cannabis or a drug or anything again in my life. Because this whole premonition of I wasn't doing anything wrong, it might have been illegal, but it wasn't wrong, shattered. Because I tell people, cannabis prohibition, not cannabis. Cannabis prohibition creates crime. The fact that it was illegal brought 6 armed men with guns to my house to try and rob me, and they almost kicked in my neighbor's door.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only way you solve that is by putting in place a legal market, because you never see Anheuser-Busch drive by Red Bull beers and shoot a cannon off at them. The way they compete for market share is they spend more ad revenue dollars and create more jobs. We need the same thing with cannabis, because the only way you're going to stop the black market is by getting rid of the black market.
Yeah, we mentioned
That's how you get rid of the people coming with guns and robbing other people.
We mentioned on the last episode about cannabis, legal cannabis starting to take over cartels and stuff like that, and illegal cannabis sales. We talked about this in the last episode and how it is putting a dent in it and starting to more and more, and it's great to see. And also there is a lot of now cannabis companies hiring. I read off all the 10 major companies that are now hiring in which state, how many jobs they're hiring in each state for people that are out of work right now, looking to get in the cannabis industry or just looking for a job right now. And then also suggested to them, there's some junior colleges now doing courses on cannabis to help get your certificate, to help you get licensed to work in a dispensary or a cultivator, which is great for people that want to get in the industry.
Yeah, it's an absolute thing. I try to explain to people one of the big things. Everybody thinks I'm pro pot. I try to tell them I'm actually not pro pot. I'm anti-prohibition. And what I mean by that is when I'm talking to some of these legislators, they think I can't support someone sitting back and smoking a joint. I said, you're not supporting someone sitting back and smoking a joint. You're supporting not having a black market and not having criminals be the one who provided them that joint.
Mm-hmm.
You can be against prohibition and not in favor of cannabis use. Just because you don't want to incarcerate people for it and you don't want it to be illegal doesn't mean that you think everybody should just get high. That's not the same thing. I mean, to each their own. If you want to get high and you can do it responsibly, great. But I'm just saying you don't have to be in favor of cannabis use to be in favor of cannabis legalization.
Right.
And we do actually know someone personally who was a victim of the situation that happened with you. The guy's breaking in to steal your weed. These people were college students that lived next door to someone who was dealing weed, and their house got ransacked in the middle of the night by guys with guns, and they all got victimized by having the wrong address. So it happens, you know. We've seen it firsthand. So
Let me ask you another question. Would you if you didn't get caught, you think you would have sold cannabis for a long time or you think was it just a few years? You think you would have kept on doing it?
No, what would have happened is, well, okay, assuming I didn't die or get robbed or get killed that way, right?
Mhm.
I had a gun to the back of my head. It was very possible to have happened. Assuming that didn't happen, I know it would have happened. I would have made a couple $1,000,000, right? And I would have gotten wrapped up in some other side project. I would have never said, hey, I'm going to quit selling drugs because I've made enough money now. That's not how my brain would have worked. I'd have just been honest with you. I would have been
Mhm.
stuff, getting involved in flipping houses, and started getting so busy with other stuff that I think I would have just eventually navigated away from cannabis.
Mhm.
I could be wrong. I can't say it. I could be still a drug dealer today if I didn't get caught. I don't know. But
Right.
there's so many things that happen in life that change your path. But I can tell you this: I will never, ever say that my sentence was a good thing and that I should have gotten that 15 years in prison because it changed my life. But I will say I'm very happy for where my life is today. And I don't know if I would have gotten where I'm at today if it wasn't for the experiences that I've went through.
There you go. Do you think all cannabis convictions should be cleared if it's just cannabis, non-guns, non-violence? Do you think everyone should be cleared from that?
I think all cannabis convictions should be cleared even if they had a gun. You can keep
Okay.
the gun. Let them have the gun conviction. Just because you commit. Okay, got a question for you.
Yep.
If you're driving your car and you're smoking a joint, right? And you have an open alcohol container. I don't think the fact that you had an open alcohol container in your car should make it so your cannabis conviction stays on your record. But I also think you had an open alcohol container in your car and you should have a conviction for that.
Right.
I believe we should remove cannabis offenses from people's records. I definitely think we should remove it from the data set. I got nominated for a Lunsford Award for my Stanford presentation on pardon all cannabis offenders. I didn't say expunge. I'm not saying you got to remove it from the record for all reasons, but we need to remove it from our data sets that make future predictions. You know, and I don't understand this whole concept of a non-violent cannabis offense is the only one we should pardon, because here's the way I look at it. Like I'm being absolutely honest here. Like, let's say I hit you in the mouth at a bar and I had cannabis in my pocket. I'm still going to have a battery on my record. I'm just saying he shouldn't have the cannabis on his record.
Yeah,
Right. There
that's
you
a good.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great point.
I'm not saying take the battery off. The guy's still a danger. But
Right.
like, I think that we as a society, like, I got a question for you. If I was in an interracial marriage in the 60s, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I sped too. Like, should the interracial marriage felony stay on my record because I also did another crime of speeding? Like, it makes no sense to me.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're spot on that.
Like, once we decide something is legal, we need, look, I have a whole speech. If you go to 30 Years for Cannabis, it's a 12-minute thing. I give a whole speech on why we should pardon all cannabis offenders. I go through the history of cannabis and how it became illegal. And once you understand that process, you are stuck with a choice. And you get to make that choice, and you got to make it and stick to it.
There you
You
go.
either have to admit that we founded these laws based on racist pretenses, that we
Absolutely.
expanded them under false pretenses to keep the Vietnam War going underneath Nixon, who his advisor even admits today that they used the drug war solely to get at the Black Panthers and the counterculture.
Yep.
And when you look at a law that we predicated on racism and extended through political, maneuvering to keep a war going, and you say that is wrong and we need to not have this be illegal anymore, then you need to say that was wrong and we should remove all the residual consequences of our poor decision. And a lot of those convictions are residual consequences of our poor decisions. The person still spent time in prison. If you give me a pardon and take the conviction off my record, I still spent 15 years in prison. It's not
Mhm.
like I'm getting off scot-free. So I
Right.
still paid some kind of consequence for doing something that was illegal at the time. I'm not arguing that consequences shouldn't be given. I'm arguing that when we're going forward, we should allow people to stand on the merits of the fact that cannabis is no longer rightfully to be illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Do you think when you were knowing being in the Department of Corrections like you were, do you think that they create an environment to better inmates' lives, or you're just different? You're just a different guy, different mentality.
I believe the Illinois Department of Corrections, underneath Governor Rauner, started to implement great reforms where they actually cared to make a difference in the inmates' lives. And I believe J.B. Pritzker's came in and has made great decisions on that regard. I really do. For all the differences that I'm a libertarian. I bleed gold, right? Look, when I was locked up, the Democrats, the Republicans never responded. The Libertarian Party wrote me and said, "What's going on to you is a tragedy." And we're they put a people element into it. So like, but anyways, for all my differences with J.B. Pritzker, when it comes to Illinois prison policy, he is doing a great job, and Rauner started that vote, and I'm very happy with him.
Oh.
And I want to say this. All those changes that I was arguing for that I got published in the paper for, they've been implemented.
Yay.
I am not saying that I had a part of getting it done. I'm not. All I'm saying is when Rauner came in, when I got out, I got a hold of the director of the communications for the Illinois Department of Corrections, and I ended up shooting a video for him. And I told them some of my ideas, and some of those things got put into policy.
Sweet.
Nice work.
Awesome. Timing, I don't know. But I will tell you this, the director of communications in IDOC, her head is in the right place. She's trying to do the right thing. The governor's trying to do the right thing. I can't speak for other state prison systems because I wasn't in them.
Right.
To be in them. However, if any state would be interested in having me give them ideas on policy, I would be more than willing to help them.
There you go.
Awesome.
Mrs. WeedMan's got a couple questions to ask you.
Okay.
So you talked about a little bit, like cannabis has gone into a big industry, right? It's corporate, essentially. So basically it's making it impossible for lower income people or people that were negatively affected by the laws of cannabis to get into the legal industry. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like there should be more opportunity for guys like you? Like if you still wanted to stay in the field of cannabis to be able to do it legally?
Well, I look at things at the root level. And like when I'm saying that we need to pardon all cannabis offenders and we need to take the convictions out of our data sets, if I received a pardon, I wouldn't be a felon and therefore I could be in the industry. I don't look for duct tape patchwork of saying, "Oh, you're a felon, but we're going to let you in the industry." Because when I look at that, then what I'm hearing is you're saying, "Oh, what you did shouldn't stop you from getting this job. So why don't we just take the conviction off your record?"
Right.
I mean, I look at it that way. And as far as like the industry, all the big corporate people, I hope the states get out of their way to allow them to hire the people that they think would be best for the job. And I can tell you this, anybody who has more than 10 years of experience in Illinois in the cannabis field was a criminal.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. But then corporate made it hard for those guys to get started because we don't have, the criminal doesn't have the deep pockets, right?
That's true. But speaking as a convicted drug dealer and a convicted drug trafficker, I will tell you this, anybody who has knowledge of the cannabis industry outside of a couple years ago in Illinois is a convict.
Right.
And when you're legalizing a profession kind of like that, I kind of want the people with the most experience who understand what they're doing and how the market works to help fight against prohibition and the black market.
Yes.
I do think that we do need to have some kind of regulation. For example, if you got convicted of larceny or embezzlement or something like that, I believe a cannabis company should have every right in the world to say, "We don't want you running our books."
Right.
Yeah, if you got pulled over for a joint or you got caught for selling pot or whatever, I believe there should be a reprieve that allows you to still be able to work inside the industry or any other industry in that matter.
Yeah. Well, I know Illinois, I don't know if it's all of Illinois or just Cook County, but I know Cook County I know that specifically, they did have programs for people who were convicted of cannabis charges helping them get into the industry.
One of J.B. Pritzker's big pushes when he wanted to legalize cannabis is he actually wanted programs to make it so that people that were affected by the cannabis prohibition would be allowed to be in the market. Let me be all fair here. I have a pardon pending between J.B. Pritzker, but I'm not saying good things about him to try and get a pardon.
Okay.
I can say bad things to balance it out if people would like. I'm just being honest. Like when it came to cannabis, J.B. Pritzker tried to do a lot of what I understand to be the correct things. Could he have gone farther? Yes. Could he allowed home grow so that you're not forced to have to buy it from a cannabis company?
Well, that's what we were talking about. We've talked about that in a bunch of episodes about letting, like, especially single moms, let them become caregivers and grow 20 plants, and they can have their small little business in their home, being able to, or a small little shop where they can grow for like 25 clients and just make some money as a single mom with 3 kids, or a single dad that needs extra money, or a family that's lower
But it's all
income.
in the books. It's legitimate
all in the books.
business.
They get to start a small business. They can grow up to 20 plants, have 25 patients, and they can make a couple extra $1,000 a month and more, and be able to teach them how to do that so they can start a business, get the tax write-offs, being able to use their home as a tax write-off, being able to have a small office, all the equipment, and then all of a sudden you're teaching them how to make income and something that they want to help people with as a medication. And
I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but what I'm looking for is the day that a single mom would never do that. Because what I mean by that is I'm disappointed that the Democrats have Joe Biden running as their top ticket because he's against legalization. And I want to get to the point where we have federal legalization where you can cross state lines, because then you will be beating down prohibition so bad.
100%.
How many single moms do you know are brewing beer at home?
Yeah.
Nobody.
They're not.
Once it's legal on a federal level, cannabis prices can get to the point where nobody would even find it in their interest to grow it. In California right now, I know someone who used to have a medical grow and then they legalized it. He says it's not even worth growing right now because he's only getting like $600 a pound, and he's growing high quality stuff.
Right.
He says by the time you figure in watering and all my time, it's not worth it on my level. And I want cannabis prohibition to go away to the point where the black market cannot compete, because a single mother wouldn't even try to grow it at home. Now, that being said, in the medium, I think she should fully be allowed to do that. She should be able to operate her own small business. I'm all for everything you said. I'm looking for the day where we're even past that.
There you go.
And then just everyone supplying themselves. You can have your grow. There's no laws about it.
I believe it'll get to the point where you go to Walmart and you can get yourself an ounce of pre-rolled packs marijuana cigarettes sold.
That'll probably happen in the next 10, 20 years. But I mean,
I honestly believe in 20 years it'll be so cheap and regulated that nobody would even really care to grow it at home.
Yeah, but most people I just started growing, and I rather grow my own, just like I grow my own tomatoes. I rather grow my own because I know what's in the soil. I know where my water's coming from. I know where my seeds are coming from, and I know what I'm smoking. Because if it's going into pharmaceutical companies and it's going into Walmart, it's going into CVS, Walgreens, I don't want it because I don't know where it's coming from.
And I fully support your right to be able to do that. I fully believe you should be able to. I'm just saying, when I look into the future, I don't think that's how the majority of the market is.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
We've talked
there
about
are
that.
people who do produce their own beer.
Yeah.
Many people grow their own tomatoes, but more people buy tomatoes from the store than grow their own tomatoes.
Very true. Very true. Miss WeedMan?
Yeah. So do you feel there's an imbalance in the way that prior cannabis laws have affected rich and poor communities in America? Kind of a loaded question.
No. I think I understand what you're getting at, and I'm just going to get to it. Do I think like black communities were disproportionately affected by cannabis laws?
Yes,
absolutely. If you go back to Nixon, his own advisor admitted they used drug laws to get at the Black Panthers and the people who opposed the Vietnam War. I don't think that drug laws indirectly affected poorer communities and the black and brown communities. I think drug laws were targeted at black and brown communities. I think that was the point. And
Yes.
Michelle Alexander, in her book, The New Jim Crow, talks about how now it's became a caste system and white people are also getting affected. But yeah, it started out as in 1914, a guy on the Texas Senate floor said all Mexicans are crazy and this stuff makes them crazy when he was arguing to make the first bill to make cannabis illegal. That to me means the first statement that I found in the State House about a cannabis law was blatantly racist.
Yeah.
Like, yes, and let me tell you this. I am white. I'm clean cut. I don't have a single tattoo on me. I like to say that I have a friendly looking face where I don't scare people.
Mm-hmm.
And I got 30 years and over $250,000 in debt for cannabis when I was 19 years old.
Shit.
So if anybody can say that white privilege isn't real, it's me. And let me tell you this right now. White privilege is real. As a white male, I will tell you the black and brown community face barriers that others simply do not. And when people want matter, I'm going to make this real simple for them. Here's the answer. Yes. You don't need to argue about all lives matter. You don't need to argue over the organization versus the principle. You need to say, in 1914, we openly admitted that we're making laws that are racist against certain people. Like, we've done things that it's clear. Like, don't get into other arguments with it. The laws affect the disproportionately brown and black communities way more than they affect the white communities.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get into all the nuances of why it happens. The truth is, it's there.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Very true.
I probably went off on a tangent on that, but like that's
I
just
love
That's
it.
all right.
Keep on going.
Yeah.
What you got, Mrs. Weedman? Got another one?
Well, this one is more of a personal question. As a
Okay.
mother, I just wonder, like, so your mom sent you the package, right? The package
Yes, she
that
did.
essentially.
For the record, she has her own rehabilitation story. She now has her master's degree and is a licensed clinical social worker in Northern
Yay.
California, running her own
Hell
business.
yeah.
Oh, I love it.
That's
And my dad was clean and sober for 6 years before he died. So when I tell the story, I mean to say how we all came full circle and all became better. But
Yeah.
sometimes I just lose track and the story goes on its own. So
Well, that's awesome. And so my question was, like, have you guys healed? Has your relationship gotten better? Did you make it through the fact that you had to do all this time? And
yeah,
are you and your mom good?
I was never upset with my mother. I wish she wouldn't have been as paranoid when she dropped off the box because that helped her get caught. You know, I was a drug dealer. My mom didn't force me to do anything. When I told the story on my 17th birthday and I asked to borrow her car, she didn't say, "Hey, why don't you go get me a half ounce of weed?"
Right.
I was already going to go get that half ounce of weed. And she's like, "Hey, can you get me some too?" So me and my mother have always had a good relationship. I think she still bears guilt that she was involved because she knows that she was the mother and she wishes she would have been a better influence upon me. But we all make mistakes in life, and just like I made a mistake in my life. But I focus on the future and how we move forward. And me and my mother have a great relationship. And my dad was my rock when I was in prison. Came to visit me every other week like clockwork. Had 119 visits before he died.
That's awesome.
This spirals into another thing. I was a Class X felon in Illinois. And what that means is I was legally unrehabilitatable and heinous.
Jeez.
So when my father died, I was unable to go to his funeral because I had a thing called a Class X sentence. And that goes into a whole nother story. But I could have had a second-degree murder and not been considered legally heinous and would have been able to go to his funeral. But since I had 11 pounds of cannabis, I was deemed legally unrehabilitatable and heinous in the eyes of Illinois policy. So therefore, I was not allowed to go to his funeral.
Wow.
That sucks. Sorry to hear about that. Got anything else, Ms. Weedman?
No. Those are my questions.
We wanted to end it with the mom question because Mrs. Weedman being a mom, we thought it'd be a good ending to that question. And Jason, your story is inspiring, not just to me and to the people in this room, but probably to hundreds of people that are going to hear this and thousands of people that are going to hear this episode. And to inmates out there across the country that get to hear this, hopefully it gives them a little lift to know that there's hope. There's justice. There's someone out there that did it, You know, and that's what I think if we could touch one person or we could touch 500,000 people with this across the world, just one person would do my heart proud. You know, we really appreciate having you on the show and taking your time out to tell your story, because it's impactful.
Thank you. I'm glad to have been on this show.
Appreciate you. And I appreciate the guy. I'm not going to mention his name either, but I appreciate the gentleman that we both know getting us introduced. And hopefully we keep in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing you graduate from
Hopefully you
Stanford.
can chase him on the streets sometime.
There you go. There you go. That's perfect.
We want to come to your graduation party.
Yeah, let us know when it is.
Good. I'm a senior this year. Hopefully,
There you go. There you go.
All works out.
I don't think there's any football this year, but did you get a chance to go to any games when you were out there in California, or any kind of sports or anything like that?
I went to a Stanford football game one night, and I realized that I was old, so I prefer to sit up in the top down with students. Yeah, I'm 38. I like to think that I don't look 38, but I definitely feel 48, so it's okay.
48's not so bad. That's where we are.
Yeah, that's where we're at. So
I was a Illini basketball fan when I was in prison. I used to watch all their games, and whenever all this stuff gets wrapped up, I want to go check out an Illini game sometime. Or still be remorseful, or tell them they have to be on academic probation as I watch it or something. I don't know.
Well, go Stanford. Forget about you or I, you know. Right. But once again, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk soon. And thanks again for everything, man. And like I said, keep on kicking ass and taking names. And like I said, you're a go-getter in my book, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. If anybody wants to find me, once again, 30 Years for Cannabis on Facebook. That's 30 Years for Cannabis. And I'm trying to get MakeCannabisNotMatter.com a thing.
Get me a shirt once you start making those, or I'll buy one. If you do like you said, a not-for-profit, get some shirts made so that goes to profit. You know, pay for your shirt, of course, and then do the rest for profit or a certain percentage. I'll for charity. I'll wear it.
Good shirt, right? Because everybody's like, make America great again and Black Lives Matter. So I was like, make cannabis not matter.
There you go. I'll wear that shirt for you. Absolutely. Yeah. So thanks again, brother. We appreciate you, Jason, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That was Jason Spyres. All my burners, potheads, and stoners out there. What an impactful story, Mrs. WeedMan. What'd you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. We actually drank some rosé. We didn't really smoke during this episode, but there's always next time. But it was such an impactful story. Hopefully you guys like that. It was our second interview, and he was just, I don't know, man. I think his story, that being in prison for as long as he was for a non-violent cannabis crime, is just crazy. And what he's doing now with his life is awesome. And hopefully you're impacted by it. It humbled me, that's for sure.
Well, I think that sometimes, like he said, you go through hills and valleys in life, and he went through some pretty crazy hills or mountains, right? Yeah. Years and years of his life that just got put on hold, but he made the best of it, and I don't think anything would have really stopped him. Like he said, if he didn't continue in the dealing industry, he would have segued into something else and been prosperous, because he just has a go-getter spirit. There's nothing that's going to stop that guy.
Hopefully there's some people out there that have been through this that can listen to his story and it motivates them, going, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
If he can do it, remember that. If he can do it, I can do it. So be strong out there, everybody. And we really appreciate you listening. Once again, just check us out on WeedMan 420 Chronicles on Instagram. Check us out on our Twitter feed at WeedMan 420 Chronicles Pod. Email us at WeedMan420Chronicles@gmail.com. And, we really appreciate you listening to us on all of our platforms. And once again, as Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff puffing away.
Bye-bye, everybody.